What's way more sadistic than it seems? By Ask Reddit.
Scary or humiliating pranks, or public shaming for punishment, of young children.
I hate it when people are mean to kids, anyone, really, but 10,000% kids, and call it in good fun. If the target isn't having fun, it's not fun. It's just sadistic and mean-spirited.
Yes. My mum used to tease me and make fun of me for things to no end growing up because you have to learn to laugh at yourself. Yay, it kinda doesn't work exactly like that.
It can absolutely be valuable to not take things too seriously, but to be able to do that in a healthy, balanced way, you need to actually be built up, not just torn down. You just spilled a little bit of juice on your outfit? Ha! That's no big deal, we can roll with this. Someone just made fun of you and hurt your feelings. Yeah, words can hurt. It's okay if you don't think it's funny and need reassurance.
A few years ago here in the UK there was a nurse called Jacintha Saldanha who committed suicide after she was the target of a prank call that was broadcasted on radio while at work in the hospital. Security guards found her hanging body along with a note blaming the call and the poor handling of the situation by her managers.
Was this not the radio host's prank calling and she was a nurse of the Royals or something and gave out information?
If it's the one I'm thinking of, they pretended to be the Queen. She gave a bunch of information which she shouldn't have. I assume she'd just been overworked AF and wasn't thinking 100%, which, given she's a nurse, is probably a fair assumption.
IIRC Jacintha was the one that transferred the call to another nurse, who then gave information regarding the well-being of their princess Duchess while she was admitted to the hospital for hyperemesis.
I don't think actual pranks even exist anymore. Nowadays, people just film themselves doing horrible things to others, and then saying, "Chill bro, it's just a prank." The pranking trend with social media really ruined it.
Making someone else debug your code.
With no comments.
In a language they haven't used in at least 3 years, flashbacks to last job intensifies.
With variables having names that make no sense like I, J, K.
With variables using I, and L.
Loop.
I once had a senior developer use 2-letter variables to hold numbers. Okay, now var MB is up to 6 and RF is 3 when it crashes. F.
Have you ever found out what they mean?
Job security.
Peeing all over the public toilet seat. You know someone will desperately need to poop and now you've forced them into a terrible decision.
I was so sick of cleaning other women's piss. Just to sit. They're frickin' animals. Now with COVID, people seem tidier.
LMAO, I walked into the bathroom at work on 2 different days last week and there was poop smeared on the toilet seat. 2 different poops.
I've seen a brown hand smear on the lid of the toilet before, and on 2 separate occasions at separate locations, I've seen poop on the ceiling. No idea how it got there. I hope they did a handstand and shot it out like a cannon instead of fishing it out and flinging it. Or maybe they just squeezed it out so hard that it ricocheted out of the bowl and hit the ceiling.
This is what gets me rolling on the floor laughing. For real, how hard do you have to poo to hit the ceiling? I can't imagine someone could readily survive a movement with that much force. F in iron : over here putting holes in the light fixtures.
Nah, the ones with poor hygiene habits are dead now.
Tickling. Especially when you tell them to stop and they don't.
Yes, it can be a form of torture.
It has been used as torture before, usually on people that were too high-ranking to be tortured with pain, like nobles.
Well, now I'm gonna have to research tickle torture because my brain has decided it's gonna be my hyperfixation of the day.
Be careful, it's also a fetish and there are some interesting videos too. I can't remember what it's called, but there is some weird documentary about tickle wrestling competitions, or something similar.
It's called Tickled and it's weird as hell. Definitely watch it. 100%. I am very ticklish and grew up with 2 older brothers. One used to pin me down and tickle me until I had tears pouring from my face and peed myself. I always got into trouble for screaming between the uncontrollable laughter and for peeing myself. I'm working through this with my mom now and we often have discussions about it, as she cannot stand the person my brother has become, so me informing her that she created that monster by never providing a single consequence for his actions is interesting. Word of advice for people who have any connection with children: telling them to ignore a bully who is only doing it to get a reaction is not okay. Bullies don't quit when they don't get a reaction, they just push boundaries further until they get one, and you will end up with 2 very fed up adults with very high therapy bills someday.
This happened to my mum. I grew up not knowing my grandfather and uncles for a very good reason.
That sounds disturbing and abusive as F sad face. I'm really sorry that happened to you.
There was a Reddit thread a while ago talking about the most effed up thing you saw happening at a friend's house as a kid. One story that didn't get much attention was a kid had gone over to the new neighbor's house for a play date. The dad came into the room, tickled his daughter, 8 years old I think, non-stop until she peed herself. He then got up and left, leaving the girl super embarrassed in front of her new friend. That poo disturbed the F out of me.
My abuser used to do that to me in the years before he molested me. My mom thought it was funny, until it really wasn't. Now whenever my kids and I have a tickle fight, we're super strict about listening when somebody says no. It's treated very seriously.
Strangely, tickling is how I realized I'm weird, lol. As a kid, someone, I don't even remember who, was tickling me as a form of teasing, bullying, and it suddenly hit me. I can decide if it tickles or not. And I just shut it off. Instantly, boom, it was just fingers in my rib cage. Like, knock it off, that's annoying. But it didn't tickle, and I also realized I could decide to stop hiccuping. I'll hiccup once, then turn it off and it's done. Coughing too, although that can be painful, so I usually just allow it to continue until whatever the irritant is gets dislodged.
Bro, watch out for any mails from a man called Xavier.
Nice try, Magneto, but I can't be tickled.
My brother can stop hiccup, he has never hiccuped more than once. He then gets super annoying when so's done else is hiccuping. Why don't you just stop? It's easy. So I get to deal with the double annoyance of hiccuping and having this asshole not shut up about how it's never a problem for him.
Tickling kids is a great way to teach them a lesson in consent. When they tell you to stop, you stop, and tell them that you stopped because you respect them and their right to make decisions about their own body. With enough reinforcement, you'll raise a kid who values consent and respects other people.
We do this with our kids. Stop immediately when they ask. We're slowly introducing consent discussions. They're young. My aunt, wouldn't stop until you passed out.
Not letting kids leave class when they need the bathroom.
My parents told me when I was a kid that if I had to go to the bathroom and a teacher wouldn't let me, to just ignore them and go. Only did it a couple times and nothing bad happened.
That's what I was told after I peed my pants in elementary school. When my kids started school, I told them the same thing.
When I was 6, I sharted in class BC. My teacher was a giant C with control issues.
Same. A full-on baby turd in my pants for the whole day because I hadn't signed my name on my art project. I'd simply forgotten, and my teacher didn't let me go to the bathroom as punishment. I was 7.
Yeah, IDK where this started, but F whoever started it, lol. Not a fan of others restricting people's goddamn bodily functions. Happens in the job world too, only instead of not being allowed to use the restroom, people sit there with a stupid effing look on their face and act like you're some kind of effing alien for having to take a poo longer than 2 effing seconds, and it's effing dumb.
Extra fun if you're a girl past a certain point in your life and they tell you to just hold it because yeah, that totally works. We just do it randomly for a week for shiggles.
One time in 8th grade we had a male teacher for history class. At the beginning of each quarter or semester or whatever, we were assigned a certain number of bathrooms passes. One day a girl in my class asked to go to the bathroom. Teacher asked for a pass but she had used all of hers. He told her to wait until the bell rung. She argued with him for a while and then screamed, "I'm bleeding out of my vag," and stormed out. Teacher looked bewildered but said nothing. He never made us use bathroom passes again after that.
The somewhat milder version is making them play word games to do it. Can I go to the bathroom? I don't know, can you? Or in foreign language class where you have to ask permission in that language, and are chastised in front of the class if you don't ask correctly.
Ich haven to take an einem massive poo.
Around 4th grade, I was in a French class and one of my classmates needed to vacate quickly, but the teacher tried to pull that in French please poo. His response was "tu es bath" and dashing out.
In 1st through 3rd grade there was this music teacher who the classes traveled to have music. If anyone asked to go to the bathroom or for water, he would sing a song. There's no bathrooms, there's no water. Nobody leaves this room. He would walk over to his piano and play. The song gets stuck in my head all the time 30 years later.
My teacher had no FS. She would not let anyone go for any reason. I wound up pissing in the closet because she wouldn't let me go. I'm calling her out 30 years later. F you Mrs. Niles from CS44 in the Bronx. Mrs. Warner, I love you and will never forget ya.
A friend of mine ended up pissing in a bottle and inevitably spilled and pissed on the floor and got sent to the principal. The principal gave him some candy and let him go. Like, what did you expect?
The hell? It's like a hostage situation.
Should have hurled on the teacher's desk.
I didn't puke on my teacher's desk, just mine. I went to Catholic school. In 5th grade we had a tiny, elderly woman I would easily describe as evil. She hated children. Midway through the day I started to feel queasy and timidly raised my chubby little arm, feeling it coming. I'd interrupted her lesson, big mistake. Yes, Mr. Sightlab, what's so important, with fire in her beady little eyes. I need to use the restroom please, I said, following the demanded protocol. Stand, she commanded, and I did, seemingly upsetting my deteriorating stomach. She walked over, angry. We do our business when we are allowed, she said severely. Continue to stand. Class, do we just do whatever we want whenever we want? No one dared say a thing. The vomit erupted into my mouth and just kinda glopped out. I had to clean off my desk before I was sent to the principal's office. We all hated that woman.
German here, laughing so hard about this.
Lol. Once I said, I can, and just left the classroom. I was flustered for a little bit but then proud lol.
I tend to take a long time in the washroom due to bowel needs. On the return the teacher demanded what I was doing. I said washroom. She insisted. I said what were you doing that was taking so long? Getting annoyed I said I was taking a dump. That's inappropriate, she yelled. You asked. I said smugly and returned to my work.
What did she even expect? Sorry ma'am, I was vaping in the stalls. Sorry ma'am, I was doing coke lines off the urinals. Sorry ma'am, I was furiously masturbating.
Mr. Hall, I was surfing the crimson wave. I had to haul ass to the ladies.
When I was in college, the instructors expected us to ask to use the bathroom. I straight up told them, I'm 24, I don't need your permission.
I tell my students, you're legally adults now. Just go. Just don't cause a distraction on your way out and back in.
Yeah, I went to a PA school and the only time you couldn't just excuse yourself was during another student's performance. You also had to wait until between performances to come back in, but most of my classes had bathroom, water breaks, so that wasn't really an issue. Kinda blows my mind how controlling some educators are.
Back when I was a team lead at my workplace, I had employees that asked. For reference, it was an office job, not a Walmart or something like that. I think it gets so ingrained in their minds that they have to ask.
Wow. I think it would be more disruptive to have to ask for permission than to have someone quietly leave to use the bathroom. One instructor was great at writing but had a voice that put people to sleep. I had him for a 3-hour seminar, so I would drink coffee and cola to stay awake. But the class was so boring, people were fascinated by anyone leaving to use the bathroom.
This reminds me of back when I was in elementary school. I went to the bathroom and did a pee, then went back to class. Shortly after I needed to do a poo, so I asked to go to the bathroom again. Teacher said I just went and I was lying to get out of class. This was the first time in my life someone accused me of lying, and it hurt. Just had to hold it in until enough time had passed that I was allowed to go to the bathroom again.
Class pets, especially rodents. They're almost never given appropriate care. They're put in unsuitable cages. Think of all the class hamsters that get stuck and die in those colorful plastic tunnels, and they rarely live anything resembling their full lifespan. If class pets are meant to teach kids about responsibility, teach them the proper requirements instead of subjecting the poor animals to awful conditions and the stress of little kids trying to grab and pet them.
I totally agree. My kindergarten had an alternative approach that I think was actually fairly beneficial. We had a stuffed panda, our mascot, and each week, a new student would bring him home and document what they did with him, write a little diary entry, and take pictures for the class photo album. This gave the kids that lesson in responsibility, obviously not the same as a real animal, but we all took it very seriously, but without putting an innocent animal into a harmful situation. I wish more schools would do away with the class pets and opt for something similar to what we had.
Yes. My class did this, but with a koala. We took it home for a week, and at the end we got a tiny copy of it to keep. I forgot about that until now. Thanks for bringing back the memory. Smiley face.
In the right circumstances they can be okay, but that's rare. My high school had 2 hedgehogs that were the bio class pets. The school wanted to get a class pets and bio teacher volunteered but has really strict requirements and he got to choose the animal. They wrote out a legal contract about it with him and in end. It was basically he owned them and would be take them home on weekends, holidays and over the summer, but during the school days, they lived in this epic enclosure that the shop class built in one of the theory cabinets.
That's a great way to do it. I'm glad when teachers take it very seriously.
He definitely did, though now looking back, it kinda feels like he managed to con the school into subsidizing a pet for him. Lol.
Maybe, but at least the pet's got a hopefully good life with someone so serious.
See, the only class pets I ever had in my school was a colony of painted lady butterflies we released after they were full butterflies. It was super awesome watching them fly around outside after we let them go. And bugs are particularly low maintenance when it comes to taking care of them.
Requiring you to get an auto inspection at a place that also does auto repairs. The inspector has literally every incentive to not pass your vehicle on the first go. Mandatory state inspections ought to be done by state inspectors that don't really have a financial stake in whether you pass or fail.
Mandatory state inspections ought to be done by state inspectors that don't really have a financial stake in whether you pass or fail. This is how it works in Northern Ireland and is the only part of the UK where that is the case. It goes back to the days of the Troubles when garage owners might be doing bad things to vehicles, or are encouraged to pass vehicles that really should fail, etc., putting all the test centres in government hands declawed much of that.
In the rest of the UK, council, county and city garages that maintain vehicle fleets will almost always do their own MOTs, and, by law, anyone licensed to perform MOTs must offer them to the public. If you call and make an appointment, they can usually fit you in and have no incentive to fail you. In fact, given that you have a right to a retest within 7 days, at a time that might not be convenient to their workload, they actually have a slight incentive to not have you come back. It can sometimes take a little work to find out how to make an appointment. I had to hunt down a vague address in an industrial estate and write down the phone number from a sign by the door, but you won't be the only one who does it, so they know the procedure. Don't expect a comfortable waiting room though.
Some places do that. Massachusetts has both DMV testing sites and accredited garages. You'll wait in a long line at the DMV place, but you won't get ripped off.
See, I have this crazy idea that anything the government requires you to do ought to be free. If you have to pay to not break the law, then we've made being poor illegal. Edit, I know nothing's technically free. You know what I mean. Please stop.
Medical education. These are your future doctors. Why do we insist they be broken before they even practice?
Didn't the guy who introduced the feature of resident doctors being sleepless was a cokehead? No wonder he didn't need sleep.
The person who created current med school curriculum was a cokehead, so med students are literally forced to hate their job before they hit the even worse times of residency.
When residency was originally instituted, students could sleep in the spare beds when they weren't busy helping, so it wasn't quite as bad. The general idea was to have them live on site so that they would learn by osmosis. To be fair, it worked. The problem is that nowadays most hospitals have gotten rid of the beds, so now the residents are going sleepless.
They usually have beds. The issue is that while back in the day they might admit 3 to 6 patients a night, now they are admitting 20 plus regularly, and advances in medical technology have vastly increased the complexity of care. So the beds are there, the time to sleep in them is not.
This is why I didn't go to medical school. I had the interest and the grades, but I don't do sleep deprivation well, and I just knew I'd kill someone in residency if I were asked to work 36-hour shifts over and over and over. I honestly wonder how many people die of medical errors because of this sadism.
I wonder about the death rate too. I wonder how many patients die or suffer because someone at the end of a 36-hour shift missed something. The worst thing is there is no reason for it other than intentional abuse. If Dr. A is on for 24 hours and Dr. B replaces him for 24 hours, instead try Dr. A for 12 hours alternated with Dr. B for 12 hours. Dr. A and Dr. B are still covering day 1 and 2, but they won't be so exhausted. One of the reasons given by experts for the long shifts is the danger of losing info, the flow of how a patient is doing, etc. that comes with shift change. 12-hour shifts, instead of 8, would reduce shift change but leave the end-of-shift doctor alert enough to pass along meaningful info. I'm sure a doctor at the end of a 12-hour shift is more cognizant than one at the end of 36 hours.
The research states that sleep deprivation mimics legal intoxication. We wouldn't let a doctor with a .08 operate on someone, but if they're kept awake until their cognitive function is the same, it's fine. There's a reason sleep deprivation is a literal torture technique.
You know how everybody can tell it's unnecessary for patient care. Post-residency they don't work those hours. Totally hazing. I had to do it, so you do, too.
Glue traps for mice. I used to share space for my business with a guy who used those traps. I would come in the morning and there would be a high-pitched screaming that would go on for hours. When I realized what it was.
My dad used kindness traps but forgot to check them. So they became concentration camps. Then he swapped to normal traps.
Yeah, like, if your end goal is to get rid of mice in your house, just kill them as quickly as you can. Any non-lethal trap, chances are you're going to forget about it, and then it becomes death by starvation over days, instead of a split-second piece of metal.
Mouse camp.
Mouse camp.
But those things are traumatizing. I made the mistake of using them once. I came in the next morning and found 2 mice that were literally torn apart. Missing feet, I pulled out, still suffering. Also, my cat got her foot stuck to one, and had to go to the vet to get it off, because it was pulling so hard it was tearing her skin. I do everything I can to talk people out of using glue traps.
Oh, I was sitting here thinking, what's so bad about the glue trap? How is it so bad when compared to other types of traps? That's how, I guess. Holy heck.
To think that my cat is actually more merciful than those damn glue traps. And more effective.
You haven't met mine. Little sadistic asshole plays with them like an evil cartoon character.
I moved into a house and a little bird got stuck in a forgotten one in the garage. We took it to the wildlife center. We didn't know about the oil trick, but they got it out and thanked us for taking the time to care. When we told my husband's sister, she said she just would have thrown it away. Woman shrugging, light skin tone. As in the live bird just being tossed in the trash like it was a Coke can. I always forget compassion is not just a given.
I'm glad it was you and your husband that found it and not the sister. That's terrible.
My friend had a mice-rat problem in his house. I offered to help him using my airgun, approximately 25 to 30 J of muzzle energy, so the rat would die instantly. He called me a cruel man, said shooting at living creatures is cruelty, and bought glue traps.
Declawing cats. Cutting off half their fingers.
Most vets won't do it anymore. I know this because I have an aunt that insisted on getting her cat declawed on all 4 paws, and she had to switch vets, call like 20 plus places and travel relatively far to do it.
Hate to say it, but that's likely because she wanted a 4-paw declaw. Most vets will do front paw declaw. They shouldn't, but they do anyway.
You're right. I've worked in vet hospitals. There are quite a few vets who will still do the front paws. Sure, they'll try to talk you out of it, but they'll still do it sometimes. That being said, I've never heard of anyone agreeing to do the back feet.
I have a coworker that declawed their cat and forgot, then kept throwing it at trees and wondering why it wouldn't climb up.
Your coworker is an asshole.
I hope their cat pissed everywhere but their litter box in response.
That's very sadistic, just the last part, geez.
Goldfish bowls. Your 1-year-old stunted little goldfish didn't live a long time, Felicia.
Bedders especially are so often abused. They need a lot more space than what the pet stores pretend they need. And pretty much every fish need proper filtration systems.
Bare minimum of 5 gallons for a betta fish. They do love their space though, and will use all of it. Mine loves my 20-gallon tank.
Can't remember where I read it, but supposedly the whole goldfish in a little round bowl thing came from Westerners seeing Asian fish on display in bowls. They didn't know that the fish actually lived in a pond and were just on display for the evening.
Yeah. In fact, I believe fish bowls are illegal in China because they recognize that it suffocates the fish. No disturbance of water equals no oxygen. Didn't realize that when I was a kid, just suffocating my fish to death.
My mom actually kept our betas alive for years because she really cared for them. Then they got sick and died within a day. Rip Goldie and Violet.
I had a goldfish from childhood well into my 20s. I didn't know they could live that long. Rip Horatio.
I brought home goldfish I won at a fair, which I was specifically told not to, and my mom kept those things alive for 10 years. They were massive. When I turned 18 and moved out, I took them with. They died a month later cause a drunk friend poured a bottle of liquor in the tank. I was so pissed.
People who think it's fun to kill animals are the scum of the earth.
I had a goldfish when I was a kid who lived for years. Got him at a birthday party when I was 4 and everyone else's fish died within a month. Mine lived for 7 years before he sadly jumped out of his bowl on a particularly hot and sunny day. Found him on the floor but it was too late. Really was heartbreaking, but he lived a decent and long life. Always cleaned and fed him well. Wish I could have given him more of a tank to live in though. F in the comments for Goldine. Yes, he was named after the Pokemon.
Medical residencies. Institution mandates years of working 80+ hours a week and being paid the equivalent of a minimum wage hourly. The merit for experience is sound, but these residents are being paid crap while the patients are still being charged the full rate. It's an absolute profit machine. Then, once the residents are experienced enough, they're punted off and a new herd is brought in to exploit.
Bonus points for Stockholming the new herd into thinking they learn so much from having to stay awake for so long and operating on people with the functional capabilities of a drunk person, and then looking down their nose at anyone who think they can be a competent medical professional without licking the butthole of the attending.
Cries in our residency.
Holding the door for someone way behind you and watch the person jog the last distance.
I hate this so much. Feels rude if I don't hurry up to get to the door, but I look ridiculous when trying to hurry lol.
It's really a social stalemate though, isn't it? Either one person has to run and catch up, or the other person has to look like a jerk because they held the door open a bit too long and now they're going to slam it in your face if they let go.
Time to change direction and pretend I was going somewhere else.
Docking a dog's tails and/or ears.
I 100% agree. Plus, who doesn't love to see their pooch wag their tails when they're happy to see you?
I'm against this if you are doing it for no reason. However, we had to amputate our Great Dane's tail. Is that the same thing, due to medical issues?
No, it is definitely not the same thing. Amputation is a safe and helpful process that, in more cases than not, solves much more problems than it creates. Amputation can help prevent infection, which can end up being a lot of pain for your pet, while docking is just a cosmetic upgrade done by heartless people.
I wouldn't say it's the same thing. We had a dog growing up that had a cyst on its ear that wasn't cancerous but was bothering the dog. We had the floppy part of the ear cut off and the dog lived a long happy life. If your dog has its tail removed for a reason other than it hitting things when it's happy is annoying, or it looks cool, I personally think that wouldn't be thought of as cruel by anyone who knows the deal.
Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.